So today on the podcast, I'm super excited to have John and Jen Pelicano. John and Jen started fly fishing during the pandemic year, something we've talked about before with Kirk Dieter and others. Recreational Boating and Fishing Foundation estimated we added some 17 million new boaters and anglers to our ranks in 2020. Or people who were returning to the sport after a long absence. Almost 10 million of those were anglers, and I would wager that a whole bunch of those were fly fishers. And the interesting thing is, as they drill down into the new users, is that many of them were a new demographic. They were people who were fishing with their families as a family activity during the pandemic. And I think that's exactly what you guys did, or it evolved into that. So you're kind of my poster children for that. And there's also some other really cool stuff we can talk about today. So welcome to the Blue Collar Fly Fishing Podcast. It's good to see your faces virtually.
Thank you.
It's good to be here.
Yeah. I do want to give a shout out to my sponsors. Duck Camp, you can see the nifty new yellow popper cap. It's got a little fly fishing popper right there that I'm wearing. And I'm wearing one of their hook setter fishing shirts. And one of the coolest aspects of the shirt is the magnetic pocket. I just love that. And their new spring fishing line dropped today. Duck Camp is a cast and blast brand. If you haven't been to their headquarters in East Austin yet, you should go. They are in a lovely old Victorian house in East Austin, and they have a complete showroom there, and you'll actually get to meet the guys and gals who run the company because they're right there. But they make premium hunting and fishing gear, and they're local, and it's really good quality stuff. I really like their bamboo shirts, which I'm not wearing one today, but they make some lightweight, high UPF, sun protective bamboo fishing shirts, and they also make them in camouflage, which is really cool. So if you're trying to sneak up on a carp or something. Yeah.
Sounds good.
My other sponsor that I need to mention today is Real Ale and Real Spirits in Blanco, Texas. You guys are familiar with them, I think. They make delicious whiskey, gin, and lots of cool beers like this Swifty American Pale Ale that I'm drinking on American. You said it's National Beer Day, is that right, John?
That's what I was told.
Okay, I believe you. So anyway, the other person I need to mention is my publisher, Mark Siedenquist, Imbrifex Books, the Local Angler series. As you guys know, my book was the first in that series, and we've got, 3 more titles under contract right now to cover Texas, and a couple of authors about to sign for books outside of Texas. So I'm working on those as a developmental editor, and it's a lot of fun. And I have been absolutely blown away by the descriptions and pictures of some of these streams in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, or in, within 30 minutes of downtown Houston, that I just absolutely had no idea they had water like that. So I'm looking forward to seeing those. All right. We're done with that. So tell me about how you guys got into fly fishing. Jen posted something on Instagram or Facebook the other day, and she said, it's been a year. My fishing license just expired, so I know that it's been a year since we started fishing. So tell me about it.
My dad's going to watch this podcast or listen to it, so I'm still going to be transparent.
Okay.
He's an avid fly fisherman, and John and I, we had no interest in fishing before February of 2020. And each year we visit my dad. They go down to Florida for about a month. And my dad said, "Hey, do you guys want to go fishing?" And I told John beforehand, I said, "This is going to happen. I need you to take one for the team and go fishing with Dad." And he did, and had actually a great day fishing, and came back to the condo with a bag full of gear from Orvis, and I was like, what happened? Like,
Now, Jen, you were the one who was supposed to be out shopping with your stepmom that day. Isn't that right?
That's right. I was shopping with my stepmom and my aunt. Yes.
And John comes back with the bag. I love that.
Well, I texted her, and in my text I said, if you see some bags from Orvis in our room, I'll explain later, right? And it was a very painful afternoon. Not because I didn't enjoy her dad's company. It was because I hated to fish. I hated fishing. I hate everything to do with fishing because it's just fishing with little kids is always just stopping fights and untangling knots and getting hooks out of people's ears and things like that. Just it wasn't fun for me at all. And I felt a pang of regret every time they wanted to go fishing. I didn't want to go. So that day, it started out with hesitation, but afterwards, it turned into a good adventure. And being in the Orvis store, Jen's father is very, very generous, and he really set us up for the success, if you want to call it that. Fly fishing success story. I don't know what that means in amount of fish that you catch or anything, but we have fallen head over heels in love with the sport.
Well, he set you up that first day with a couple of really beautiful vintage Ross reels, and he was going to send you back to Austin with those. And I think he asked you, didn't he, if I send you back with these reels, are you just going to go to Walmart and pick up an Eagle Claw rod to put them on? And you said yes.
I was honest with him, and I said yes. So he was not going to let that happen. So he bought us a couple of clear water rods from Orvis, which are amazing.
We really love them. They're great.
With those Ross reels, it's just, you can't have a better rig than that. Really, it was 5 weights, I think they were.
Yeah, 5 weights. And he was gifted these Ross reels actually from a friend of his. That's how he got into fly fishing a number of years ago. And we had no idea what a Ross reel was, right? We had no idea the gift that we were receiving. And it wasn't until much later that we realized. But we came back to Texas, and we were like, okay, we promised him that we would go fishing, so we have to go fishing. Like, we've got to at least do a selfie, right? And be on the water. And to John's point, we fell in love. We had no idea that Central Texas had so many beautiful rivers and streams, and we love the outdoors. We're kayakers, and it was pretty incredible. But I will say that for quite some time, we just didn't catch fish. So right after the pandemic, we ended up going on social media, and everybody said, you have to go to Living Waters. Like, that's going to be your resource. And so we went out to Living Waters, and we actually, right before the pandemic, they were having a class on how to cast.
I think was that the intro to fly fishing class that Chris does on a Saturday half day. I think that is one of the best values in outdoor recreation, period. He covers so much in that class and offers it for free. It's amazing.
Well, we brought the little kids, the 3 little kids. They're all teenagers, and they did great. They really enjoyed it. There was a lot of interest. Also, Living Waters offered some fly tying classes, which really got us interested in fly tying, where we got all the equipment and everything. And still to this day, I tied about 50 flies 3 weeks ago. We love everybody at Living Waters. This isn't a commercial for them, but they really take care of you. They know their stuff. And I guess the first couple times we went out, we didn't catch a thing, but we really enjoyed the outdoors. We enjoyed the art, the
beauty of it. Just the sport's incredible.
And then I guess we can jump ahead to my birthday, right?
Yeah, before we get to his birthday, though, I want to make a comment. So John, he's a first responder, and so he works either 24 or 48-hour shifts, and we would always go fishing together. And so one day I thought, I'm going to venture out on my own, and this is really, I was like, my gosh, what if I catch a fish? I don't know what to do, and so I called a friend of mine, Leslie Smith, who's in California, who's into fly fishing, and I'm like, if I catch a fish, how do I even get it off the hook? Because I didn't have anybody with me that day, but I fell in love with the sport so much that I thought, I'm just going to go ahead and go out there. If I catch a fish, great, I'll figure it out. But I did not catch a fish that day. But I was strangely a little relieved, because I was like, I don't want to ask someone to help me get a fish off the hook, right? But in talking with Melody and Chris and Jim at the shop there, they said, you know what, getting a guide would likely be helpful. And actually the first weekend of John's, the first weekend they opened up the guide services after the pandemic was John's birthday. And so worked with the fly shop and surprised him with a full day of, being on the river with the living water was,
I can't remember who
was it.
Griff. It was Griff.
Oh, Griff. Okay,
Griff.
Cool. Yeah.
And we learned, that's the day that we learned how to fish, and we caught
a million fish,
some incredible fish
up on the upper Guad. For my birthday, it happened so naturally and so organically. The fish of my life, probably about a 5-pound upper Guad, big old bass, big old bass. And I caught him on a popper, and I sight casted him, and Griff was like, he couldn't believe it. He wanted to get that netted quickly, so he jumped in the water and netted it, and even asked if he could take a picture with it. So it really taught us. It really taught us the rudiments,
So that's how Griff gets all those big fish pictures.
Exactly.
I'm beginning to understand now. Yeah. Clients.
But he was wonderful. It was a wonderful day, and we learned so much. He actually taught us casting. He taught us where to cast and how, what was working, what wasn't. And if it wasn't working, he would switch flies, and just all the rudimentary stuff that we didn't know. We didn't know anything.
Yeah,
we came back from that. We came back from that trip, Aaron, and we started catching fish every time.
Yeah. I think a lot of people think, or maybe there's an idea that going fishing with a guide, he's going to do everything for you. You're going to catch a million fish, and sometimes that happens. But I think the greatest value of hiring a guide is number one, to learn. Like as you guys did that day, and even if you are a proficient fly angler, if you're fishing new water somewhere, hire a guide the first day and learn something about that river or about that species that you're chasing that you haven't chased before. So, man, I think that's and they've got such a great crew down there. We're blessed with a lot of good guides in Central Texas, but Marcus, Griff, they've got so many great guides. Chris himself down at Living Waters. It's a good operation for sure.
Yeah.
So after that birthday, you started catching fish. At some point, Jen, you posted something somewhere, and this is how we connected, about wanting to get some lighter line rods. And I think that's when you and I first started talking. I recommended a builder that I know, and he built a couple of rods for you guys. Is that right?
It is. So we had the clear water from my dad, but then we also wanted to engage the kids with this as well, and thought that they would just love it. So we also got a couple of Scott fly rods, and but then we realized we're just buying these 5-weights, right? And we needed some lighter rods for these sunfish and different fish within the hill country. And Aaron, actually, just to actually on John's birthday, I got him your book.
Oh, and, man, thanks.
Yeah, and he he fell in love with it so much that he said I needed to get my own, and so I did. So I have my own book. But the book became kind of an adventure tool, because when we went fishing with the kids, we would bring your book with us, and we would essentially be like, all right, where are we going this weekend? Right. And the kids got to pick, and then they would read about, all right, well, we need to, if we're going on the Llano, whether it's, the rope that's there, and say thank you to Chris who installed the rope, or the canoe from the old farmer. Like, we just love those stories.
Loved all the details, and it's probably not very easy to write. It'd be easy to fall into a pattern writing about streams and saying the same things all the time. But we're not blowing smoke, but the way that it was written, your book was written masterfully. We really loved it. It was enjoyable reading. I read it from cover to cover right away. And then we used it, like Jen said, as just before we would go, we would read what we were going to expect. And then we got there, we knew where we were going, and it all panned out. Now, your book doesn't guarantee catching fish. That's the next thing you need to work on, Aaron.
Yeah, I suggested to my publisher that we offer a money-back guarantee if you didn't catch fish. He didn't think that was a good idea. Well, listen, I really appreciate that so much. To hear that from you and how the book was useful to you and to your kids, it means more to me than a review in the Drake or an award or anything else. And I've received a few of those messages kind of over the transom, via Instagram or Facebook, and from people who just found the book really useful. And it makes me really happy. It makes all of the trudging through streams, all that awful hard work I had to do, worth it, for sure.
It helped, immensely. And to your question just earlier about lighter lines and different weight fly rods, like, we knew nothing. And so I would just send out questions on Instagram or Facebook and just say, listen, we have 5 weights. We now need to kind of look at some lighter lines and rods. What are your thoughts? And that's where you chimed in, and you're like, hey, what's offline? You sent me a message. Hey, what's your budget? What are your thoughts? And you really connected us with some great contacts. Shane at Graywolf is fantastic. And we actually got our 3 weights from Shane, and he was very gracious and just extremely helpful. He actually, I'll just plug Shane for a second, not that I intended to, but I couldn't, since I didn't know anything about what the difference between a carbon rod and a glass rod. And I just said, listen, be patient, with us. What do you recommend? And he said, Jen, I'll tell you what, I'm going to send you both. He's like, let me know what you think. Send the one back that you don't prefer. And best salesman ever, because we got them both. And I loved the carbon and he loved the glass. And so we kept them both, Oh,
that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. He also gifted me with a 2-weight spinner rod.
Oh, nice.
And he put my name on it because I was a first responder. And,
COVID.
Yeah. So that was good salesmanship, right there.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. And, we have a couple of really just phenomenal craftsmen here in the States who build incredible rods, and you can get them customized. You can actually have a conversation with Shane or with Dusty Smith at Livingston. Help me out here. You just talked to him.
The guy, rod builder.
I talked to him a while ago. I can't remember exactly what his. I think it's Livingston.
Yeah. Gosh, he's going to kill me. He's such a nice guy.
And Griff's going to kill us, so we're good.
You gave out a secret. C. Barclay Fly Rods, Chris Barclay, really good friend of mine. And they just do such nice work, and you're buying something that's built in America, and if that matters to you, you're supporting a small businessman or a businesswoman, and you're getting something that's unique, and works really well. These are great tools. They're as good as any production rod out there. So
Barclay's on our list. I can't wait. Yeah, for sure.
tell him I sent you. He charges my friends a 25%. Yeah, a surcharge. But no. I'm looking up Dusty's company because it just Livingston Rod Company. He does really nice work as well. So you guys started getting kids out on weekends, and I've seen pictures. You made it a family affair, and you guys even took a fly fishing trip up to the mountains, didn't you? During the pandemic year.
Yeah, we went to Taos at one point. That was our first trip outside of Texas. Mm-hmm. And then we went to South Fork for our second trip. Both very, very good adventures. We learned a lot more about trout fishing and how much different it is from bass fishing or the panfish that we normally catch here in the hill countries. But the experience of getting out and getting different species and checking things off your list. And, Jen caught a monster cutthroat out on awesome. Poage Lake.
Poage Lake. It was amazing.
And,
okay. I have to say though, this is, so if you've been on Poage Lake, you can be across the lake from someone, but still kind of say, hey, and just say something across the lake. And it's about a 22-inch cutthroat, incredible. And it was the first time I'd ever caught a trout was earlier that morning. Mm-hmm. And John was across the lake. And when I pulled this trout in, I'm like, it was so big I couldn't take a selfie, right? And I'm like, I have to get a picture with this fish. And so I was like, John, well, he thought something was wrong. So he drops everything. He starts running.
We're about a mile up in the sky, right?
Right.
So I'm running. I'm not in bad shape, but I ran out of oxygen probably after 20 steps. And
sure. Yeah.
Here I am running around the lake thinking something's wrong with my beautiful bride. And I'm getting closer and I run into a branch. It knocks my glasses off, cuts my temple, and it floors me. I just wipe out on the ground, right? And so I get up and I find my glasses and I walk over to her thinking that there's something wrong. And all she says is, could you take a selfie?
Oh my gosh.
It was it was a gorgeous trout. I mean, it was just, it was,
yeah.
There are no words.
I almost started hating fishing that day again because I didn't catch anything all day.
Sure.
She caught fish after fish after fish after fish. And then 15 minutes before the sun went down, I was walking around and I said, I'm going to cast there. We were about ready to go to our campsite. So I threw my line in and 2 seconds later, bam, I get my trout for the day. And,
nice.
And it was well worth it. I learned something about myself that day that I take my fishing way too seriously. Going from hating fishing now to taking my fishing way too seriously.
all in the space of a year. I love it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's amazing growth, Aaron.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So what is it about fly fishing for you guys? I mean, you said you guys already hiked, you already paddled, kayaked. What is it about fly fishing that's captured you? And do you think you're going to stick with it? I mean, is this something you're going to keep doing?
For sure.
If you don't mind, my first degree was art. Mm-hmm. And I'm not an artist really, but I appreciate art a lot. And it's just the artistry. Everything about fly fishing is beautiful. If you're a fly tyer, people take pictures of their flies on purpose because they're beautiful. I mean, they're imitations of bugs. I never thought I would think that was beautiful, but the artistry in a well-tied fly is beautiful. I watch my 17-year-old son casting. He casts much better than I do. Backhand casting, his casting is beautiful. It's just an art, and it is so natural for him. It's gorgeous. The fly rod is beautiful. The feel of it in your hand, the way it moves, just everything. I mean, really, even we purchased some kayaking kayaks for fishing, and they're specifically made for fly fishing, and they're beautiful. They just how they handle in the water, the design, everything is just well thought out, well designed, and on top of that, you're out in nature, right? Especially in a mountain stream in Colorado or in New Mexico. It's just you can't get any more beautiful than that, right? I mean, nature just doesn't get any more beautiful than that. You're out in the middle of nowhere, 100 yards away from the nearest person, if there are anyone else on the river, right? So,
yeah, and it's not. I mean, I think we've all heard trout live in beautiful places, which is certainly true. But long-ear sunfish and Guadalupe bass live in beautiful places too.
Well, look at the fish themselves. I mean, 100%. Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Gorgeous. You know, and you would never see them if you didn't catch them.
There's this, Greg Brown has this song, a spoken word song called Eugene. I'll send you a link to it, but if you haven't heard it.
I love your music, Aaron.
Oh, thanks. Are you being sarcastic?
Yes.
But at one point, he says he's going to go catch some brook trout, those little brook trout in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and they are God's reminder that creation is a good thing. You know, just holding that fish, and I find the same is true for a long-ear sunfish or a green.
Yeah, sunfish. It's a magical moment to hold that fish just for the privileged few seconds that you have before you have to let it go. It is a magical moment that is very spiritual as well.
Mm-hmm. And the respect for the fish, right? I mean, we've learned, how make sure we didn't know, make sure you wet your hands before you touch the fish. I mean, there's so much to it. Also, the respect aspect for the fish that you're catching. So.
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting. You guys it sounds like you guys have done like 10 years of fly fishing growth in 12 months, We
had a lot of spare time with COVID.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I want to bring us forward. Jen, so my entire book tour got canceled due to COVID. But finally, sometime in the fall, I don't even remember when it was. Maybe you remember what the date was. I feel like it was October, November, maybe. Mesquite Creek Outfitters, my local here, they sell Duck Camp and Howler Brothers and Patagonia outdoor clothing, and they also have 16 beers on tap and a nice wine selection. And they're right on the historic square in downtown Georgetown, and they're good friends. And Sam there sent me a message and said, "Hey, do you want to do a little book signing?" And at that point, the pandemic, the COVID rates had really dipped down, and they were still at 25% occupancy or something. And I'm like, sure, let's do it, And a handful of people showed up. I think it was a Thursday night, maybe, or a Tuesday night, some weird weekday night. But Jen, you sent me a message and said, "Hey, John and I are driving up. We're gonna be there." So you guys drove all the way up from South Austin, which between 5 and 8 p.m. is no small feat with traffic. But I guess what is that, 45 minutes normally or something?
At least, yeah.
Yeah. So you guys drove all the way up, and I remember I was sitting and talking with a guy I hadn't met before, Preston Bazant, who's now a friend on social media as well. And I was signing a book for him, and I remember John walking up with his tattered copy of the book, and he introduced himself and said, "Hey, I'd really like to buy you a beer and just sit and talk with you." And I said, he said, but finish what you're doing, finish with the people who are here to buy books. I said, sure. So I finished up and went over to your table, and thanks for that beer, John. And we had a beer, and we started talking. And you mentioned that you had spent 8 or 9 years studying to be a priest. And I asked you, I said, were you a Jesuit or just slow? And you laughed and said, just slow, I guess. And I said, it's funny. I lived in a religious community in Connecticut for a year. And you kind of perked up and you said, where in Connecticut? And I said, Orange. And you said, I was Father Bannon's secretary. And at that moment, it all came back to me. And I don't think it came back to you right then, but it all came back to me right then. And I almost cried at the table. That year that I spent as a lay member of this religious community was one of the hardest years of my life for lots of reasons. And you, John Pelicano, brother John Pelicano at the time, made it not only made it bearable, but you gave me some insights into things that I would not otherwise have had, and it's always been a highlight. So I've thought about you often that was a lot of years ago. That was 30 years ago. And I've thought about you often since then. And I never really thought I'd see you again. Didn't know what happened to you. So it was completely out of context that you had left religious life and, with the Pope's blessing, and got married, had kids. So this guy from Syracuse, that's where you're from, right? Upstate New York?
Just outside of Syracuse.
Yeah. That I met in Connecticut 30 years ago, is now living in Austin and shows up at my book signing. It was an amazing moment, and a very emotional moment for me. And if you don't mind, I want to. I told my mom. I said, "Mom," I know I have a photo album with some pictures from Connecticut from that year, and I'm sure I have a picture of John in there. And in fact, I do. So, you guys got that? You were a hockey player, right?
Yeah, I played some hockey. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the muskrat pond just below the house we lived in, and it froze over that winter, and I found a pair of rusty old skates in the basement. And you cleaned them up, and you taught me how to ice skate a little bit. We had a lot more hair back then, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
My hairline is receded all the way to my back.
There you go. But that was a really extraordinary moment, and I have to think that it wasn't completely random, and that there is some meaning behind that. So I'm really grateful to have you back in my life, John, and to have fly fishing as a touchstone. And we haven't been fly fishing together yet, but soon, I hope.
That night of the book signing, I don't know if you know this, but I was there early, and Jen joined me after she was able to get off work. And one of the first things I said to Jen when she sat down at the table was, I'm going to ask Aaron if he'll go fly fishing with us. And Jen said, "No, don't do that." And I said,
"We don't know him yet.
Yeah,
Just wait until we get to know him."
But I remember looking at her and saying, "No, I'm going to ask him to go fly fishing with us. I don't care." And she didn't say anything. Mm-hmm. So there was, there's always something in the back of your head that just kind of something's familiar, and talking to you that night, once we realized we were in the same place at the same time, it wasn't your bald head that reminded me of your 18-year-old, 19-year-old self. Mm-hmm. It was your voice and your energy. Mm-hmm. And you've always had a lot of energy, and you just, you're always moving around, and you can't keep still. On the way home from that book signing, it all just started flowing back. Mm-hmm. I don't remember a lot of the detail, but it was a special time in my life too, obviously. And, I'm privileged and very proud to have that memory with you.
Aaron, we were so excited to actually meet you in person that evening.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the man behind the book that has, you know, for months that we had been following kind of your footsteps to the local streams. And I'm like, just told John, I'm like, you can't ask him to go fishing. Like, we can't scare him away this early, right?
Well, yeah, not scared. And I get a lot of invitations to go fishing, and you know, just like you, John, I'm a shift worker, you know, on the boat. So the time I do have, you know, with the family, the kids come first, and the honeydews and everything else, and so I don't have a lot of time to go. If I do go fishing, it's usually I'm taking one of the boys or something. But yeah, of course, I mean, I would love to fish more with people who have read the book, you know, and I do it when I can. And I made so many good friends writing the book, and people were so generous with their knowledge. I mean, I had lived here 20 some odd years, and had been on a lot of these rivers and creeks, but you know, you can spend a lifetime getting to know one stream or one reach of a river, and so I had a lot of help, and there was a lot of generosity involved, and but yes, of course we're going to go fishing, and
I'll give you some pointers.
Yeah, I could probably use them at this point.
For my year's worth of experience.
Well, you know, it's funny. Other people have said this, but people will say, I've been fly fishing for 20 years. You know, well, that means that they took 2 trips a year for 20 years, right? For some people, you know, and there were 2 guided trips. There were floats on, you know, the frying pan or something, you know, whatever it is. I think it is possible to get a lot of experience in 1 year, especially when you're fishing in your backyard, you know, for sure. Anyway, that was an extraordinary meeting that evening. Not a coincidence, but whatever it was really cool. So thank you guys for driving up from South Austin. That was, or where were you, John? Were you working that day, or were you off? Or you
I
just got
was off. Yeah, I was off.
Yeah. So you're a first responder in Hayes County. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. Thank you. I mean, what a big job that is. You know, I once knew a crusty old master sergeant in the Army who said, he said, if you're not building, healing, teaching, or growing, don't get too overworked about your job, because it's not that important, you know? So I don't think that was your dad, Jen, before he became Sergeant Major of the Army Reserve. But
that's right.
He has a lot of wisdom too. I read an oral history that he had contributed to or was interviewed in, and he's got some cool things to say as well, by the way.
Well, we're certainly thankful for his introduction, you know, to fly fishing, and it was such a surprise.
Yeah. Have you been able to fish with him since then, since you guys have become experts?
You know, we have offered him lessons. No, I'm joking. So we have talked to him about getting together for a trip soon. Given the COVID environment, it's been concerning, just for various reasons, personal reasons, health related reasons, and but we are excited to have a trip with him at some point really soon. So I would guess that within the next few months, he lives in Kentucky. Within the next few months, we'll likely be able to meet up with him, and so.
Well, you ought to introduce him to our Guadalupe bass and long-ear sunfish if you get a chance. There's so much good fishing in Kentucky too, though. So I don't know. Might have to flip a coin or something to see where you're gonna.
That's right. Fishing. Probably both at some point. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. John, do you think your kids are going to keep up with the fishing? Is this? I mean, it's hard to tell with kids, right? I mean, especially if they're really adept at all sorts of things.
Yeah, I think my oldest son is. I think he feels it in his blood. He has certainly surpassed his father's talent, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I'm still working on it. It's a work in progress, but I think he will, and so much so that that one of my goals this year was to move on to build a couple rods. Mm-hmm. And my first rod that I'll build is for his birthday.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah.
I hope that wasn't a surprise.
No. He won't, he won't hear this.
Okay.
It is a surprise.
It is a surprise, but he won't listen to it. But yeah, I want to build 2 rods this year, and I absolutely love tying flies. I love it, and I'm more of a traditionalist. I don't like a lot of the new designs and everything. There's way too much stuff out there, I think. So I do a lot of studying of the old proven, patterns and stuff like that. The Orvis patterns and just all of the patterns up through from Europe to the United States, Catskills, out to the West. And I really, really enjoy the history. So I think because of my love for fly tying, I think rod building is just it's a progression, right?
Sure it is. So, and I think a lot of that same attention to detail that you bring to fly tying is really going to serve you well in rod building too.
Yeah.
Do you have John Shewey's book on salmon flies?
No, I've seen it. Uh-huh. I know what you're talking about, but it's like that's another thing. Salmon flies they're wall dressing. They cost $15 to tie one fly, and then you use it gets trashed, right? So we haven't gone salmon fishing yet, so I don't want to diss salmon fishing, but or
maybe it was steelhead flies, but many of them were based on salmon flies. And I mean, talking about the history, I've heard John talk about this, and apparently it was folks who came in 1848, 1849 to California during the gold rush who brought those East Coast flies, some of which were based on English patterns, and brought them to the West Coast, and turned out they worked just fine for steelhead.
They're absolutely beautiful pieces of art, really they are.
But you're right, jungle cock is expensive, and so yeah. Cool. What's your favorite fly to tie?
Right now, I had just tied a bunch of Adams because I was getting down to basics, and I really enjoy them. Yeah. Blue-winged olives, and even the funny one is the easiest fly to tie, but it's super fun, is an egg pattern.
Oh yeah.
Really, really fun.
Do you use the little foam fluff for that? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's cool.
And the F fly, you love those patterns.
Oh yeah, the old time F flies. Anything with I'm not thinking correctly about all the types of feathers and everything. Just anything with any dry fly. I love dry flies above all. I really do. You can get just a small range of material, and you can make a lot of different types of flies.
Sure.
But you asked what my favorite one is. I think it's the Adams. I really do. It's
the parachute Adams.
Yeah. Well, I haven't tied a parachute Adams yet.
Okay.
But the original Adams pattern. Yeah, I really enjoy that.
Invented in Michigan, actually. Yeah. The Adams fly is such a great fly because it mimics such a wide range of mayflies.
Versatile. Yeah.
We have a really nice, during the summer months, we have a really nice caddis hatch on Brushy Creek in the evenings, right kind of in the twilight hours, right before sunset. And I'm not an entomologist by any stretch, but I think they're white millers. They're a pretty hefty sized caddis and they're white with, really long antenna. But it's extraordinary to just sit on the bank and watch the fish rise to those emerging caddis flies. So,
and if you can gull one with your own fly that you tied,
100%, 100%. Yeah. So we need to go down there. We need to go down there to Hutto and just sit on the bank there some evening and watch those fish rise and
drink a Swifty
and catch a few of those flies and get a good look at them.
Sure.
For Sounds sure. Good. Yeah. And then I'll leave it up to you to tie them.
All righty.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything smaller than about a size 12 and I start getting lost with my little sausage fingers. So,
right.
Yeah. Well, listen, is there anything I have not asked you guys that you would like to talk about or anything you'd like to ask me before we go?
What's next for you, Aaron? What's the next publication?
Good question. I don't know. I'm knee deep in editing these 3 books right now, which is really rewarding. And watching these authors, their voices get stronger and more distinctive is just really fun. And I think they're going to be great titles. I am still writing a little bit. I recently started writing and outlining a memoir, which on the face of it sounds so narcissistic. Why does anyone want to read about my life? But that may just be a way of me taking stock at age 52 and trying to figure out how I got here and what lessons I can draw from that for the next 20 or 30 years, or however long God gives me. But so I don't know if that's going to go anywhere. I've always wanted to do dive bars and dance halls of Texas. I thought that would be Riley's Tavern down in Hunter, not far from you guys. The Devil's Backbone Tavern, Fisher Hall,
Sure.
Green Hall, Schrader Hall down by Victoria. I mean, there's just so many great old places that have a lot of character. I think that would be really fun to tell those stories, both in words and photos.
I just had a cheeseburger with my son at Freiheit in New Braunfels. Yeah. That's been around for 135 years or something like that.
Isn't it amazing? I mean, for Texas, that's positively ancient. That's medieval, right? I mean,
right.
Yeah. And I really would like to do a Gulf Coast book, kind of a do-it-yourself wade walk and paddling trip. Most of the books on fly fishing, the Gulf Coast in Texas are really focused on guides or on boats. And not everybody has a flat skiff or has easy access to one. So lots of people have kayaks or easy access to kayaks. So anyway, so that's in the back of my mind, and I may try to co-write that with a couple of these other guys that I'm working with right now on their titles once we get those done. So anyway, that's that. That was a longer answer than you wanted, I'm sure.
No, we'll see you at the book signing.
Yeah, I hope I see you before then. So I think there's some limoncello and some pizza in the offing soon. So
hope
absolutely.
So. Don't wait too long.
Yeah, or it'll be gone, right? Just like that beer you were drinking. Yeah,
that's gone.
Yeah, mine too. Jen, anything else you'd like to say?
I've appreciated following you on social media because even before we met you at the book signing, you would mention books such as there was a book on the Blanco River. There's also a book that I think was recently released on the Sam Houston area fly fishing. And so when you would mention a book, I'm like, well, we got to get it, So we had the book on the Blanco River, and I don't recall, was it by Wes?
Wes Ferguson, yeah.
Ferguson.
Wes is now an editor for Texas Monthly. And as a matter of fact, their big cover story last month about exotics in Texas was his. And he's a fine writer and just a really nice guy. And he fly fishes as well, but go on.
Yeah, no, it was, the book itself was beautiful. It sat on our sideboard for months because it was a beautiful book. But then also the history, we just loved reading about different aspects in the history of the Blanco River. The Sam Houston book, and I do not recall the author of that one.
It's Fly Fishing the Sam by Rob McConnell, and Rob's writing our Fly Fishing Houston and Southeast Texas title for the local angler.
Well, we recently picked up that book, and it's to explore the Sam Houston area for fly fishing. And so since we knew nothing, we relied heavily on social media. We weren't able to go and hang out with people. And so just appreciate the recommendations virtually, that you shared, because it's really helped us branch out and really find ways of even falling more in love with this beautiful sport.
One thing Jen didn't mention, but she always mentions to me that she's blown away by the fly fishing community.
I agree. I was just going to bring that up too, John. I mean, aren't people generous? I mean, especially in Central Texas, everyone it seems is willing to offer help and insight and whatever you ask for.
Yeah,
it's true. And I mean, regardless of whether it's been in Central Texas or Taos, New Mexico, or the fly shop in South Fork, or we also went to Gunnison and Almont, Colorado. And it doesn't matter where you go, like these small little fly shops, they're just so generous with their time and with their knowledge. And, we're thankful for that as well, because otherwise
we would still hate fishing.
We would still hate fishing. Says the fly tying, rod building, 20-year veteran in 12 months. I love it. Well, yeah, I can't agree more. And as you mentioned earlier, we're really blessed to have Living Waters here. I mean, who would have guessed that a creek shop in Round Rock, Texas would be really, I mean, one of the finest fly shops, full-service fly shops in the country. And you've been to a bunch of them. I've been to a bunch of them. And I think Living Waters holds its own against anybody.
For sure.
Yeah. And, we've got Real Fly down in New Braunfels and Action Angler part of the year down there on the river, and Green Outfitters in Green, and the Orvis shop here in town. I mean, down in your area, you've got what's that shop in Bee Caves? Sportsman's Finest.
Yeah, I will tell you though, I mean, we drive to Living Waters, because they were so good to us early on.
Yeah.
And we have been to the others, no question. But it's that relationship that you have with that local fly shop, and just the education. And when we went to Colorado, I mean, we bought an atlas, a Colorado atlas, and they literally like highlighted, okay, well, think about this, and spent some time with both Chris and Jim, and provided just guidance on where to go even outside of Texas, as we were venturing into Colorado. So, hands down, that's where we're going to go, just because of the relationship that we've built with that crew there.
Right on. Yeah. Very cool. Well, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me this evening. And I know we had to reschedule because of me and my stupid bum leg. But I'm really grateful to you for taking the time. I'm grateful for your friendship. I'm really looking forward to getting together for dinner sometime in the next month or two. Now that Carrie and I are safe for you guys. And yeah, man. So thanks so much.
Perfect. Thank you. We appreciate it. Tell Carrie hello for us.
I'll do that.